It's finally week 1 of the NFL season. What will the Rams have in store for this season with their first season with Matthew Stafford? What about the Chargers with that brand new O-line? Can they keep up with the Kansas City Chiefs? Find out in the next edition of Sideline Sports Podcast. Welcome to Sideline Sports Podcast. If you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. Wow, it's already episode number 92, guys. Number 92, just 8 away from episode number 100. We've got to go big on when number 100 comes up. But I'm Alex Naveja from Sideline Sports Podcast via Sideline Sports Media, where if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast, the source of your SoCal sports news. And on the bottom screen, that is Mark Vargas. This is his bread and butter. NFL insider, NBA insider, NCAA football, and of course, who can forget combat sports? Mark, how's it going, man? We missed you this weekend. What's going on?
Hey, man, I would put it like this. There's been a lot of sportsmen I've been having to watch, caught up with a little bit of work, mixing up. So start of NFL season this weekend, I'm ready to go, ready to roll. I'm just excited for this, man. We got both LA teams. We got the college football scene. Big win for UCLA, big win for SC this weekend. So, you know what? It's go time. As far as I know, it's, we're all gas ahead. You know what I mean?
I got to say, I think we owe Jose some sort of like a lunch or something because he guessed that UCLA was going to come up with that win against LSU.
The night off. He got the night
off. I don't think anybody would have guessed that one for LSU to lose against UCLA. But now, on my left-hand side, that is a very familiar face for all of you day one supporters of Sideline Sports Podcast. That is Will Hernandez from CBSLA. Will, how's it going, man? It's been a long time since we've seen you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alex. It's always great to be back on the Sideline Sports Podcast. Best time of the year is pretty much here, football season. You guys mentioned earlier, last week we got it kicked off with USC, UCLA, obviously coming up with that big win against LSU. It's the best time of the year, man, and I'm really excited to talk some Rams and Chargers football with you guys, and it should be fun.
Man, having NCAA football in full stretch, also having NFL football, oh, man, you just know it's that time of the year. It's fall. The weather is going to start to cool down. Friday night lights. You get Saturday night lights as well. You're getting the full-on coverage here on Sideline Sports Podcast. If you guys want to stay up to date with all of the coverage, make sure to follow us on all of our social media handles down in the description below. We have everything going on, folks. We've got plenty of surprises coming up for you guys. Not going to want to spill anything, but that's why you got to follow. You also have to hit the subscribe button down below so you guys can always know what's going on. And also hit that little notification bell because we'll hit you with a little surprise here and there. But before we even get started, this episode of Sideline Sports Podcast was brought to you by Manscaped. Go on manscaped.com. Order yourself the Lawnmower 4.0. That is the latest technology that Manscaped has developed. It is the newest development that they have created, and it just works even better than the 3.0. I use the 3.0, and the 4.0 is even better. If you thought it felt good already, it feels elite right there, and the shave is perfect. So just go on manscaped.com, use our promo code Sideline20 to get yourself 20% off plus free shipping. And what's better than getting a discount and getting free shipping on any of your shaving needs, folks? That's it. Manscaped.com, promo code Sideline20. That's all you guys have to do. But let's go straight into the business. LA football. You've got both Chargers and the Rams who are going to be having exciting years. But let's talk about the bolts up. Let's talk about the Chargers right now. I mean, going into this offseason, they really addressed the O-line situation to get all of the protection that Justin Herbert needed this year. But now they make some signings, and now they look like a team that can really keep up with the Chiefs. What do you think, Will? Do you think could this be the year that the Chargers could keep up with the Chiefs?
Oh, no question about it. I mean, outside of the final game last year against Kansas City, where it was, well, Patrick Mahomes didn't play, none of the starters really play. You saw what happened in that first game against the Chiefs. The famous, medical mishap that, ended Tyrod Taylor's career with the Chargers. Justin Herbert finds out, literally 30 seconds before kickoff that he's going to be a starting quarterback. And, the rest is history. He went out, played a pretty good game, but obviously that was last year. And we saw what Justin Herbert could do. He's, he is the future. The future is now. And as you're mentioning, they made some pretty big additions during the offseason to help fortify their offensive line. They bring in Corey Linsley from Green Bay. They drafted Rashawn Slater, in their first round pick out of Northwestern. So they're committed to helping protect Justin Herbert, giving him the protection he needs. And I mean, as we saw last year, AFC Rookie of the Year, he was the number one quarterback under duress. He was the number one. Right before him was Matthew Stafford, who's obviously now with the Rams. But assuming, they can all stay healthy, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. They did lose Hunter Henry. But, he had his health issues as well, staying healthy, being able to stay on the field. But, yeah, I don't think there's any question about it, Alex. This team is built to score. And, they bring in, obviously, Brandon Staley from the Rams. He's a defensive first coach. He was a quarterback in college, but he made his bread and butter being a defensive coordinator. And they bring in Joe Lombardi, the former offensive coordinator of the Saints, to be his offensive coordinator. So I think there's a lot of good things going for the Chargers right now. And it all starts with number 10, Justin Herbert, who shows he's the real deal.
Look. We're gonna find out some questions with that offensive line right off the bat. Opening up with the Washington football team, you probably have one of the top defensive lines in the league, right? You got Jonathan Allen, you got Chase Young, and Montez Sweat. Coming off opening the season off, there's gonna be a lot of question marks. I know we got a rookie left or right tackle. I can't remember which position he's playing, but opening up. If you're Justin Herbert, you got to remember last year, like you said, being one of the top rushed quarterbacks, defensive rushed quarterbacks in the NFL. You're gonna have to have that ticking, that time clock in your head. We'll see if they're able to hold up. Like you said, they're built to score, but if they can't protect him, it's gonna be a long season, and it's gonna right off the bat. You're gonna see, if the Chargers believe that they can have a season where they can continue to grow and continue to be on the up and up, they're going to need to solidify that offensive line. And I'm a firm believer is the only way to get better is when you actually go do it. So, all this, time for talk is over. Time for, debate is over. We're going to find out Sunday is if that O-line could hold up, if that money is well spent, the draft pick is well spent. Like to answer your question, Alex, are they going to be able to compete with the Chiefs? And I don't think, to answer that truthfully, I don't think it's so much what the Chargers did. I think what happened last year with the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, I think it's going to be a tough, the Chiefs are going to be on a mission this year to not just win their division, not just, make it back to the Super Bowl, but to erase that almost embarrassing performance in the Super Bowl last year. So unfortunate for the Chargers, you're going to be facing a team, or you're going to be competing with the team that kind of has, something lit underneath them, right? And if you're telling me that Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, that explosive Chiefs offense, and, one of the top defenses in the league have something to go play for, it's going to take a lot for the Chargers to compete. But I think where they fit in great, I think they can compete for one of those wild card spots. I think, if you look at the Raiders, I don't think the Raiders have a complete team. You know, they can win some games, but I don't think they'll be able to compete throughout the season. And if you look at the Broncos, you know, a lot of quarterback turmoil right now is, you know, are they going to go with Teddy Bridgewater? I think they are, but, you know, they have their young quarterback sitting, you know, being right there. That might be the whole season right there is if they keep going back and forth. So I think the Chargers, you know, have a good spot to be at. They know that, you know what, we might not be able to compete with, I guess, talent-wise with the Chiefs yet, but they have a good, you know, not program, but a good, you know, good team right now where they got a young coach in there. They got their young quarterback. They got a new offensive line. It's where you want to be if you want to compete in this league. You know, there's not a lot of, like, if you look on the flip side, you know, we'll get into it later on, that team has a lot of money into win now. The Chargers aren't in a win now mode. They are in a let's continue to get better mode. And I think they're in a good spot, especially when you look at the AFC West, not the most competitive.
Not the most competitive, but when you have a team like the Chiefs that really do have a target on their back in the whole AFC conference, I think that's the Chargers' motivation. No, they won't get over the Chiefs, but I do think they will hang on to them. I think maybe they can be a game behind them, maybe 2 games. I do see the Chargers being a wild card team, even though there are a lot of great AFC teams, which are a lot of the teams that the Chargers are going to play this year. Talking about their scheduling, they play the whole AFC North. They play against the Ravens, your Steelers, Mark, the Browns as well. And the Bengals as well. You get 2 youngsters, Burrow and Justin Herbert duking it out. That's going to be a fun one to take in as well. But the scheduling this year for the Chargers, that's not easy. Look at some of the teams. Even play against the New England Patriots, a new Mac Jones quarterback having to face off against a Chargers team that is going to be a team that is really looking to just contend now. Just like you said, Mark, they're not looking to go for all the way, but I do see them being a above 500 team, no doubt about it. But do you think the Chargers will be able to stay above 500 this year? And do you think head coach Staley is the answer for the Chargers? Will it work for them?
Too early to say, but more than likely, I think so. Justin Herbert has proved last year, you know, he did have a couple games where he essentially killed their momentum. For example, a game against the Chiefs, you know, they were pretty much in cruise control, or they were in the driver's seat to win that game, and he throws an interception late, and that kind of reverses the momentum. The game against Tampa Bay, where they go up by 3 touchdowns, he throws an throws an interception, or turns the ball over, and they go down and score right before halftime, and they go on to lose the game. However, they got rid of Anthony Lynn, who I thought he was a good guy, good human, good coach, but he was not a great game manager. And it was pretty clear throughout his career with the Chargers, considering all those close games that they lost, all the games where they were leading and they lost. So that's going to be the first thing that Brandon Staley's going to have to prove, is that, he's not too conservative, and he knows how to manage the game. And the Chargers definitely believe he does. I mean, just after 1 year of being a defensive coordinator of the Rams, they were pretty eager of giving him the job. So he's good, but it's going to be a tough test early on. There's really no easy game this year. I mean, you start off with the Washington football team, who we know has a really good defensive line. They have a really good coach. They have, they brought in Ryan Fitzpatrick. They have good weapons there. So that's a tough, and it's going to be on the road. You have that whole East Coast, West Coast thing where, they're kicking off 10 a.m. Then you follow up with the Cowboys. That's going to be, it's going to be more than 50 Cowboy fans there, at SoFi Stadium. Then, you go back on the road against the Chiefs. So there's really no easy games for them. But as we mentioned earlier, Justin Herbert in the NFL, first you need offensive line, and the Chargers definitely made the investment. So we'll see how that pans out. But they definitely have skill position players to do that. I think Austin Eckler this year before last year where he had his injury, he was a top 10 running back in terms of statistics. And you bring in Joe Lombardi, who you saw all that success Alvin Kamara had. In a podcast that Austin Eckler came on with ESPN's Adam Schefter, he talked about, he asked him about it. And he said that, you've seen how Alvin Kamara is. They use him obviously in the backfield, in the passing game. That's basically what he's going to do. And then you obviously have really good receivers like Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, who, those two guys, when they're healthy, are pretty good, especially Keenan Allen. Last year he saw 147 targets, 100 receptions for almost 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. You saw the connection early on with Justin Herbert. So, the Chargers definitely have everything that, on paper, they have everything they need to be able to compete, to be able to, earn a wild card spot or potentially win a division. I think that's going to be tough, because you have the Chiefs and, you have them a little motivated. They also made improvements to their offensive line. So, but to answer your question, Alex, most definitely, they have, and then you got to talk about the defense where, Brandon Staley obviously going to have a big hand in that. And so far, Derwin James is healthy. So, that's a good sign. They have Joey Bosa coming back. They did lose Melvin Ingram, but, I think, but at the end of the day, everybody knows that the NFL is now an offensive league. And if you can't score, if you don't have a quarterback that can, that could get that can throw the ball downfield and, can make good decisions, you don't really have a shot. Fortunately for the Chargers, they do.
Yeah, I think, like you said, you look at their opening couple of weeks, right? You look at the first 6 games, they're playing 4 playoff teams from last year. I think if the Chargers need to break down the first 4 games, right? You got Washington, Dallas, Kansas City, and the Raiders. I think if you're looking at making a playoff run, if you're looking at making a flip of last year, you got to at least go 3-1 in those first 4 games. And they're all winnable games. If you're a Charger hopeful, if you're a Charger fan, you're looking at those first 4 games, you're looking like, all right, maybe exclude the Chiefs, they can compete with the Chiefs. They know those games are always closer than on paper says, right? But if you look at the first 4 games, they can beat Washington. If they can do their job, they can protect Justin Herbert. They can take care of Washington. Dallas is a bunch of question marks right now. We don't know what Dallas is going to look like. Not going to be back is Zeke Elliott. He's been phenomenal. Getting his body back in shape this offseason. With Amari Cooper. The Dallas defense. If you're looking at a game that might be a shootout. Week 2. And then if you look at the Chargers and Chiefs, yeah, it's a toss-up, but you give it the favor to the Chiefs. And then the Raiders. If I'm a Charger fan, that should not be a question. I think we handle the Raiders every game this year, right? So if you're 3-1, and then you got the Browns and Ravens following after, it's very important that you take care of these first 4 games. And if you can go into Week 6 with maybe a 3-3 or a 4-2 record after playing a tough 6 opening, I think you're looking great. Because if you look at the last 6 games of the year, you're playing the Bengals, the Giants, the Chiefs again, but you're also playing the Texans, the Broncos, and the Raiders. So you're opening up with 4 playoff teams, but you're closing out with 1 playoff team the last 6. So you got to win the games you're supposed to win in this league. If you give a couple games you're not supposed to win, or you're supposed to win and you lose, it's gonna create problems later on in the year. And I'm pretty sure Charger fans are very understanding of that, with Anthony Lynn being their head coach the past couple of years. They lost a lot of games that maybe they should have won going into the game, or games they should have won late in the game. They made a couple of mishaps. And, like I said, if you're going to continue to be a team that's growing, being on the up and up, you got to take care of the little things, right? You got to take care of, if you're up by a touchdown with 4 minutes to go and you have the ball, get a couple first downs. You got to, it's all those things that you have, they learned last year would have taken to win games. Now to win those games. You can't take a step back. When you have a young quarterback, you got to continue to keep growing, because if you take steps back with these young quarterbacks, then you start having question marks. Are these guys the right person for the job? And as of right now, we all believe in Justin Herbert. I think the league believes in Justin Herbert to maybe be the next, phase of franchise quarterbacks. And you know what? It's going to, like they always say, sophomore slump. The ones that happen to be top of the league, that slump is not really a big thing. The ones that happen to take a big step back, they do progress, and they do regress in that sophomore year. So, you know what? I think you play it down week for week. If after 2 weeks they can go 2-0 against the NFC East, I think they'll be in good position going into week 3 against the Chiefs. And you know what? I'm just, you have to win the games that you're supposed to win.
Yeah, you really can't lose in any of the games with the NFL. Any team that's below 500, you have to win. You're not going to get too many opportunities when you play against a team above 500 against those playoff teams, and especially when you have to play the Chiefs twice. That's not a team that is going to be at all easy, but I think the Chargers do have a shot in beating the Chiefs. Will they beat the Chiefs? I think they'll beat them at least once this year, if you ask me. I think they'll split it with Kansas City this year, and I think they'll give them their money's worth, and I think it'll be a real fun one to watch. You can't discount that one. Now, to finish off this first half very quickly, I want to hear just your guys' season prediction, the record for the Chargers. Mark, what say you? What do you think the Chargers record will be this year?
Well, we have 17 games this year, so I think they'll find themselves in the 9-8, 10-7 type of area. I don't think they'll be, below 500, but I think that they do play a lot of good teams, and we'll see if that line can protect, if that line can get the job done. You maybe add 1 or 2 more wins to that, but it's a tough schedule, and you got a lot of teams that are in win now mode that they're playing. So I'm thinking they'll be able to compete for that third wild card if they can maybe keep it close with, maybe the AFC North's going to have another team that's going to be competing. They're going to have 2 playoff teams for sure. So it's going to be, who's that third team? Is it the Steelers? Is it the Ravens? Is it the Browns? And all those, they played each other this year. So that game might come up for a tie-breaking situation. So we remember last year we had like 6 teams in the last 2 weeks of the season that were able to, compete for one spot. So it's going to be one of those things. Again, I do think if they do get in, it might be that third wild card. If not, you know what? I think it's just about making sure Justin Herbert takes the right steps into going on into the future. And, then you deal with what you have to deal with in the offseason. But if I'm a Charger fans, like I said, it's an exciting year this year. And, it's all about Justin Herbert and seeing if he's really that guy.
Yeah, I think 9-8, 10-7 is pretty much where I see them going as well. As Mark mentioned, the first 2 months it's a pretty brutal schedule. You face obviously the Washington football team, you have the Chiefs, you face the AFC North, the Browns, the Eagles on the road. That's never an easy game. You have the Patriots and the Ravens. So it's not going to be easy for them at all, but towards the end, it does, there are a lot of winnable games out there for the Chargers. And, and in a lot of, not a lot of games that are going to be pretty much no games, maybe Denver late in the season, but all those are going to be pretty much weather friendly. So it shouldn't be an issue for them. And as Mark mentioned, Justin Herbert, we all saw what he could do last year, and as long as they can, protect him and stay healthy somewhat, they have a really good shot, and obviously Brandon Staley has a lot to prove. First-year head coach, but I think if anything, was a good sign last year is that he knows how to – he came up with Vic Fangio, so or he was, he worked with Vic Fangio before he got the job with the Rams, so he knows his defense. He knows how to, create a game plan to put his team in the best position. But Yeah, it's, I think they have a really good chance of making the playoffs this year. Beating out the Chiefs is going to be tough, but they definitely have the weapons and the team, the roster to do that. So I think, yeah, if you're a Chargers fan going to this year, you got to feel pretty good about yourself, about where the team is going. You have your franchise quarterback. You have your coach, a young coach that you believe in. You got your new stadium. So everything's looking pretty good for them right now.
I think I'm going to go ahead and give them an 11-6 record, and I think they will be a wild card team. I don't think they're going to beat KC as far as for the top of that AFC West, but I will give it to them 11-6. I feel really good about them this year. I feel like they're going to have themselves a pretty good year, but like Mark said, if they're a team that doesn't make the postseason, I mean, ultimately, you really have to evaluate it. Did Coach Brandon Staley do his job well? Was this a good choice as a head coach for the Chargers? Because one day down the line, the Chargers do want to win a Super Bowl, just like their counterpart in LA, the Rams, are going to be trying to do as well. And is Justin Herbert progressing up as an elite quarterback in the year? But that's going to do it for the first half. But when we come back, we will talk about the Los Angeles Rams. They have a new face of the franchise, and Matthew Stafford. Could he be the quarterback that the Rams need? Could they be a Super Bowl team, as SoFi Stadium will be hosting the Super Bowl this year? Well, stick around for the second half of Sideline Sports Podcast, where if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. We'll be right back.
This is Hector Aguayo, the long snapper for the Santa Ana Dons, and you're watching Sideline Sports Podcast.
And welcome back to second half edition of Sideline Sports Podcast. Once again, I am the host, Alex Naveja, on Sideline Sports Podcast via Sideline Sports Media, where if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast, a source of your SoCal sports news. And now on my left-hand side, that's Mark Vargas, NCAA football insider, NFL, NBA, and combat sport insider. And on that bottom screen, that is Will Hernandez from CBSLA. First half, we were talking about the Chargers and what kind of year they're going to have. Can we expect them to have a playoff push? Will Justin Herbert finally be comfortable in the pocket with that new redesigned O-line? And according to these two guys, I had a pretty hot take having them 11-6, but we'll see. But a team that will be looking to try to have a record like that or even better are the Los Angeles Rams, making some moves, a big one, a significant move, just trading quarterbacks away with Goff and bringing in Matthew Stafford, a great veteran name, and bringing him into Los Angeles and sacrificing once again that first-round draft pick. I feel like it's been such a long time since we've seen the Rams even have a first-round draft.
Yeah, no question about it. The Rams definitely, the Rams management definitely value proven versus unproven, which I totally, I'm with that. But you also have to look at their roster, and they definitely have a win now roster. Guys like Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, they're not going to be great at what they do forever. And then, you also have Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, guys who are talented at what they do on the offensive side of the ball. And, yeah, you bring in Matthew Stafford, you jettison Jared Goff out of here. And you can't blame Sean McVay for doing that, Sean McVay and Les Snead, because Jared Goff was really, really bad last year. I mean, we remember the run he had the year they made it, they went to the Super Bowl. But the last two seasons, he was just, he really, really struggled. Especially under pressure, the games they lost to the 49ers at home when Nick Mullins was starting, that was a game they had no business losing. The game against the Jets, they had no business losing. So I totally applaud the Rams for pulling the trigger and picking up Matt Stafford. As I mentioned earlier, last year he was the second best quarterback under duress. He had injuries the whole year, and he still managed to find a way to get on the field. The Rams, they're going all in into this season.
Yeah, like I said earlier, they are and like you said, Will, they are in a win now scenario. They're not in a win now to 2 to 3 years. No, no, no. They have to win a Super Bowl this year, maybe next year, in order for this to be a success. Because they don't have any future right now. They're everything they put. They're all chips on the table, and they're banking in on pretty much. I feel like a underappreciated quarterback. Matthew Stafford's been putting up great numbers his whole career, but in Detroit, and nothing ever goes positive in Detroit, but people retiring. So, I think you bring in Matthew Stafford in, which is a great move. You make sure you kept some of your weapons on the offensive side of the ball, and you lock down arguably two best players at their position in the league. Aaron Donald, who might be the best defensive player in the league, and Jalen Ramsey, who for sure is considered probably top 3 defensive backs in the league. It's a lot of money tied up into those 3 players right there. So they have to produce. There's no bad games. There's no, even if they get hurt, and, NFL's a game where injuries happen, weekly practice, they have to produce. So do I think they could, dominate this season? Do I think they can go out and have a 3-4 loss season? Absolutely. But there's no room for error. Like you said last year, losing to teams with backup quarterbacks in, or injury riddled, or maybe COVID riddled teams, you have to win these, like, more so than the Chargers. Chargers don't have a lot of expectations. The Rams do. The Rams, if I'm the Rams organization, you're looking at, all right, you know what? If we don't have a year that we're supposed to have this year, you're looking at Sean McVay and you're like, all right, what is the problem here? Is it the coach that's not getting it done? And that might be a hot take within itself, but if you're looking at what has been done, coaches have been fired for much less. So I don't want to get too crazy too early, but that's the type of mindset the Rams are in right now. They're not looking at the future because they have no future. They have to win now.
This is it. They have the big spotlight going in right now. This is the LA team that a lot of people are going to be watching right about now. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from the Chargers and the talent they're going to have this year as well. But, I mean, a lot of people are thinking, hey, the Rams just made a quarterback move, and they're looking to be that team in the NFC. Well, it's not going to be easy when you still have the Green Bay Packers that are still there, and you still have the 49ers that are going to be healthy, and they may have Trey Lance be their starting quarterback as well. But some moves we didn't even cover as well was that trade from the New England Patriots getting Sony Michel. That's a huge running back move for the Rams. That's a very aggressive move on their behalf, and being able to keep a defensive tool in Floyd, for him to work alongside Donald, that's going to be a nice little D-line for the Rams as well. And getting such a strong back like Sony Michel, and now going to be working with Henderson, that's going to really that's just the stamp of approval. Yep, the Rams are here to stay. They want to be like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they want to host the Super Bowl this year as well, here in LA, here in SoFi, in the inaugural year for the fans to be able to watch the Rams. And also looking at this schedule for the Rams as well, they're going straight into it and have to play against a defensive team like the Chicago Bears. That's always a team that's fun to watch defensively, and also they've got a young quarterback as well in Justin Fields. What do you guys think about the schedule for the Rams?
I think it's a pretty tough schedule. The game against the Bears, they should win. They're 7-point favorites. You mentioned Justin Fields, but more than likely, Andy Dalton's gonna, be the starting quarterback. Probably until say week 5, or until he just starts to really struggle. But their head coach Matt Nagy's already said that Andy Dalton will be the starting quarterback week 1. Why? I don't know. But definitely, their future is in Justin Fields, and I think he'll be, I think he's going to be a solid quarterback, especially fantasy football wise. However, going back to the Rams, they got a really tough schedule. I mean, week 2, they're at the Colts, then they come back to play the Buccaneers and Tom Brady. they were just loaded last year, and they're still loaded. I mean, they added some they added some new guys on their defensive line. And then, obviously the NFC West is never, I mean, it's arguably the toughest division in football. You have 2 games, against the Niners, who, for whatever reason, the Rams have really struggled against the last 2 years. And credit to Kyle Shanahan. I think he's a really good coach. He's a great play designer, great game planner. And he's had the Rams number the last 2 years. However, the Rams had her number, the last 2 years before. Previous 2 years before that. The Seahawks are going to be tough as always. As long as they have Russell Wilson, they're going to be tough. Even though the Rams have played pretty well against them, and I think a lot of that goes to the Rams defensive line with Aaron Donald. And as you mentioned, Alex, bringing back Leonard Floyd, they paid him a lot. They gave him a 4-year contract, I believe almost $50 million. So, they clearly believe in him. And they did lose some guys. Obviously, they let go of Michael Brockers. They traded him to Detroit. Samson Ebukam signed with signed with the Niners. But yeah, they, re-signed Leonard Floyd. I think that's going to be big. When he was healthy last year, you saw him make an impact. They paid him $64 million. So, they're not afraid to spend, and they're not afraid to pull the trigger on setting their, high draft picks to get, some proven talent. But it's going to be tough. However, Vegas has their, win-loss total at 10.5. So they clearly believe in the Rams. They think they're, capable of winning, 10 games, 11 games. And towards the middle of it, it gets a little easier. You have a game against the Lions. But then you face the Packers, which is going to be tough. You saw what happened last year in the playoffs. And then you finish off the season with games against the Vikings. 4 tough games to end the season. I think even though the Rams have dominated Cliff Kingsbury since he's been the coach of the Cardinals, or ever since Sean McVay has been a coach of the Rams, he's undefeated against the Cardinals. However, they're going to be tough this year. They have a good quarterback, Kyler Murray, good offense. But yeah, we were talking about earlier, the Rams, they're built for this. Last year they had the number 1 defense. They were only allowing 6.5 points in the second half all of last season. So, but they did lose some guys. So we'll see how they rebound.
Yeah, like you said, man, the NFC opposite of the Chargers again. The NFC West is arguably the toughest division in all of football. You have the Niners, who probably are going to be favored, one of the top teams with the Rams, but with the Bucks and Packers to make a deep playoff run if healthy. The way they're set up is they are very similar to the Chiefs. They have weapons all over, speed all over. And if they get their young quarterback, rolling, that might be a scary sight right there to see San Francisco like that. And then you got, like you said, the Seahawks with Russ. If the Seahawks can put some stuff together, the Seahawks are a dangerous team. Nobody wants to see Russell Wilson because he can easily put up 500 yards passing on you, no matter the team. And then, like you said, the Cardinals. Yes, the Rams have had their number. But the Cardinals did a lot of spending this offseason, bringing in James Conner from the Steelers, bringing in J.J. Watt from the Texans, and then also bringing in A.J. Green, a very quiet move that was not talked a lot, throughout this offseason. So, they're giving Kyle Murray weapons to throw to. And that Cardinals defense is no joke either. Budda Baker, you've got Chandler Jones, you got JJ Watt there. I mean, it's a tough. Those are just 6 games you got to play, and you know what? Those are games. Maybe you can say, maybe they go 4-2, maybe they go 6-0. They can possibly go 0-6, and it's a long shot to say, but those aren't easy games to play, especially those road games. And you have to go up to Seattle, which is always tough. You got to go to the Niners, and guess what? Those home games are not usually big 100% Rams games. You're going to have Niner fans filling up SoFi. You're going to have, maybe the Seahawks and the Cardinals are not the biggest, but there's games that, as we see, LA teams are not LA NFL teams are not the biggest sellout for their own teams. There's going to be a lot of games where it might be 50-50 across in the fans. So, you really can't take nothing for granted. And I'm not trying to hate on the Rams, but I just don't see it when it comes to the playoffs. I don't see them beating the Niners. I don't see them beating the Packers. I don't see them beating the Bucks. Those are three teams that they'd have to get over. And the way it's set up right now, and maybe Sony Michel can come in and add a wrinkle to this offense, because right now losing Akers so close to the season, it's not one of those things where you plan the full off season without him. You do have time to get them in the offense, and come playoff time, maybe you bring somebody else in to help. It's going to be a running back by committee team this year. So, I mean, it's going to be a lot of Matthew Stafford. We're going to find out what kind of player Matthew Stafford is this year. You do have weapons on the offensive side, but all right, now it's time to see why Matthew Stafford was traded for, why, that big bag of money he's making. There's going to be a lot of things, a lot of eyes, like you said, a lot of eyes are on this team. And when you have a lot of eyes on a team, a lot of mistakes, there's no excuses for it anymore. There's no, Jared Goff's not the guy anymore. Like I said, I can't stress it. You have to win now, because if you don't, there's going to be a lot of angry people. And guess what? There ain't going to be a thing you can do about it. There's not I'm going to trade Matthew Stafford to get my draft picks back. Nope. And you're going to look at, do I trade Aaron Donald? Do I trade Jalen Ramsey? That's what happens if you do not win now. That's what the reality of it is. So, I think they can compete. I think they'll make the playoffs for sure, but it's what wrinkle can they add to get over those three teams in the NFC to really make sure they have a say in, like you said, if they want to host the Super Bowl at home, they're going to have to do something within their roster right now. Maybe, and Sean McVay might be the man for it. Offensive mastermind, people were getting jobs just because they knew him. All right. So you got to understand that if McVay can maybe get in the head of Matthew Stafford, and, that guy has seen everything from, great, from playing with Calvin Johnson to playing with nobody, he's been able to produce. So, you put a mastermind with him, they can maybe do some magic this year. But once you start losing a couple games, you're going to, like you said, once you have all eyes on you, there is a whole another sense of pressure that maybe, the spotlight in LA might be too big for some people.
And I guess that's when you cue the Tupac song, All Eyes on Me, because LA, that's a huge city, and it's a city of champions, just like the Dodgers and just like the Lakers were able to do that same year last year. But the Rams, they're trying to do the same thing. And I could transition to my next question. What are you guys' thoughts on Matthew Stafford? What do you guys think? What is going to be in store for the veteran?
I think the Rams are going all in terms of, McVay he's had a huge bro crush on him ever since he's, come to the Rams. Like he's in love with Matthew Stafford, and maybe part of that is to kind of, take a little jab at Jared Goff. There was a couple of reports that came out during that last season, him and, he took some shots at Goff. Like, there was some arguing between them. Like, he wasn't backing down from ripping him. And that's understandable, because I know I was doing it in front of the TV a lot. Yeah, I mean, the Rams, they're pretty well respected right now by a lot of people. Vegas has them as they have the fourth best odds right now going into the season to win the Super Bowl. They're at 12-1. The Athletic put out an article today of ranking NFL execs ranking the best teams in the NFC, and I want to say the Rams came in at number 3. So, there's a lot of people that respect them. we talked about their defense, but going back to Stafford, I'm sorry. I mean, this guy, he's proven year in, year out, like he can get the job done. He's tough. Last year, he was missing last year, Kenny Galladay didn't play. He pretty much held out most of the year. The Lions weren't that great. Matt Patricia, it was a train wreck at the beginning of the year. And then they finally, they fired him and, they started to play a little bit better. But, just last year alone, he threw for almost 4,100 yards, 26 touchdowns, only 10 picks, and he had a 65 completion percentage. So, the Reds weren't the only team who were trying to go after him. The Niners wanted to get him. Rams got him before, but and I mentioned earlier, he's been one of the best quarterbacks under duress. And most importantly, I think the real reason why the Rams went after him is his ability to go downfield, to take shots down the field. And you rarely saw that with the Rams last year with Jared Goff. And when it wasn't, it was a low percentage type of situation. Whereas you have a guy in Stafford who has been there, done that. He's been through the trenches of the NFL. He's been at the highs and lows. Obviously, he's never, won a Super Bowl or I don't even think he's won a playoff game. But, the Rams are definitely, they're all in on him. And right now there's talks that there's some rumors that a extension could be on the way, which isn't surprising. I think, McVay went out and made it clear that this is a guy he wants to run his system. So I don't think there'll be any issues with him. Obviously, he's proved he's pretty durable. Outside of that, when he first got into the league, he's been pretty durable. I mean, he's played in 16 games pretty much almost his whole career. There's only, I would say, 3 seasons where he hasn't played 16 games. So, and then just kind of going back to the running back situation, obviously Mark mentioned, the Rams lost Cam Akers, and they were really high on Cam Akers. I was really high on Cam Akers last year. He got hurt at the beginning of the year, and then but you saw what he could do towards the end of the year. And a lot of guys who I follow who, do analytics and, all this stuff on football, they were really high on Cam Akers. But Darrell Henderson's, solid. I think Sonny Michel, I think down the road, he's going to be a huge addition. His first 2 years in the league, he rushed for over 900 yards. He was pretty much the Patriots' cowbell. But now the Rams are hoping that, he could be he's going to be in a similar situation as what he was doing. Obviously, last year, the Patriots, Damian Harris came along and he kind of took a back seat. But I think, it's definitely a big pickup for the Rams. And, Matthew Stafford has all the tools and weapons he needs to be good. And, reports out of camp have been at, you see a lot of reporters saying good things about the connection between him and Robert Woods. Obviously, you have Cooper Kupp there. You have Tyler Higbee. And, they invested into the draft as well. They drafted Tutu Atwell in the second round out of Louisville. They brought in Jacob Harris out of Central Florida, who I think could be a sleeper down the road. I think, the Rams definitely believe in Matthew Stafford. And I think, all Rams fans here in LA are definitely excited about it.
And I know I've been talking a lot about Matthew Stafford already, so I'll keep it short and sweet. I think when the games matter, it's different from when you're playing catch up, right? And like we saw a lot with Dak Prescott last year, right? Putting up these phenomenal numbers that open up the season, but all of them were, I think they were 1-3 with them, right? That's a big thing. Now we're gonna have to watch Stafford play in big time moments throughout. That defense is gonna keep them in games. So now they're not playing back, just preventing touchdowns. They're gonna be out there trying to gun for interceptions, trying to win the game, right? So I think with like you said, we need the running. They need the running back system to get at least the job done. It doesn't matter if it's a 1, 2, 3 back committee. They need to get that done, because if you have no running game, I saw it last year with my Steelers. It's hard to do, no matter how great the weapons you have or how great the quarterback you have. If you don't have any running game, it's going to be easy for the defense to scheme you up. And, quite frankly, I think defenses are getting used to Sean McVay. They have seen it. It's, like I said, they're going to have to add a wrinkle. So, you know what, Matthew Stafford, you're going to have to go prove it. Prove it. And, I've always been a fan of Matthew Stafford. I've always like, man, this guy was just out of Detroit, or you know what? Ever since Megatron left, it felt like he's just been there putting up great numbers and taking L's. So, you know what? This is a time for him to get out there, put up great numbers. And, like you said, LA is a city of champions, right? And I'm sorry, we don't like first, we don't like second, third, fourth place finishes, right? We want to be up top. We want to, hang the banner up, have a parade, and that's just how we roll. So, you know what, Matthew Stafford, if you really want to get that extension in LA, and you really want to etch your name in maybe some more of a winning history book, you have the time and you have the team to do it. So we'll leave it at that right there. And you know what? Good luck, Matthew Stafford. Good luck, Rams.
So very quickly, what do you guys think the Rams record is going to be? We'll start off with Will.
I'll probably go 11-6. I know, I'm barely going over their season win total that Vegas has set, but I think this team's stacked. However, as Mark mentioned, Sean McVay is going to have a lot on his plate because ever since that Super Bowl run, I think Belichick kind of put out a blueprint on how to sort of disrupt his system, how to force him to make adjustments, which by the way, he didn't make many during the Super Bowl, or at least, Belichick had every answer for it. But, they have a new quarterback, Stafford. I'm a little biased, but I think he's going to be set up to have a pretty good year. A lot of people that I respect are very high on them. So I'll go with 11-6.
Yeah, I'm very similar with that, 11-6. I could even say 10-7. It's going to be a tough schedule, tough NFC West. And, a couple of these games, you're going to have to go back to back. And if you have a player that's hurt, you don't have a lot of depth. You don't have a lot of money to bring extra players in to really keep that depth up there. So, you know what? 11-6, I think would be enough to get you in the playoffs. 10-7 might put you kind of on the edge like they were last year. But, definitely a dangerous team. They always say all you need is a ticket. That's all you need, a ticket to the show, and you can go do whatever you want. So if they can punch their ticket in and they can get in, they can beat some teams. But it's gonna be a long year with so much money, given to just 3 players. So they need those 3 players, as long as they stay healthy and as long as they can really not just do themselves, but if they can produce like they're supposed to, then definitely that 11-6, 10-7 might look more like a 12-5, even a 13-4 if they really play lights out.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and leave it as 13-4 is going to be their record. And you know what? That's a big take. I know you guys are looking at me like I'm crazy, but 13-4 is going to be my take right there to finish up the podcast, as that's all the time we have left here on Sideline Sports Podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning into this one. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below, hit the thumbs up, and comment down below what you guys' predictions are for this coming year. And don't forget to follow us on all of our social media platforms as well. We'll put that in the description below. Will Hernandez down below. Will, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, man.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure being here.
And that's Mark Vargas, NCAA football, NFL insider, combat sports, and NBA insider.
Hey guys, just like Alex said, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit those like buttons, turn those post notifications on. We're at 339 subscribers right now. We're 11 away from 350, and at 350, we're posting our giveaway. Like Alex said, we got a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of content on the Sideline Sports media page. We have Sideline Sports Podcast with Alex himself, Alex, Jose, and myself. And then we have the Center Lock Show, and I'm going to be bringing in more guests, bringing in more content. And then we have El Color with Jose. So we got the content coming. We got everything that you guys want. Just keep showing us love. And you know what? Keep showing us love. We're going to give back, and that's what we're here to do. Don't think this is just a one-way seat. No. We got enough room for everybody. Will, shout out to you, man. Definitely want to bring you back. We'll talk maybe in a couple weeks, maybe week 8 or week 9, and see kind of what our predictions are maybe holding up. And like you say, hey, we also got to keep an eye on Jose's UCLA record, man. If they keep winning, you know what? We're going to take Jose to Vegas, and we're going to have him play all the bets down. All right, so thank you guys, man.
Thank you.
Just hit the subscribe button, folks. Don't know what you're going to get. But I'm Alex Naveja from Sideline Sports Podcast via Sideline Sports Media. Thank you so much for tuning into this one, and enjoy week 1 of the NFL season.